activities that you can submit, but it need prior planning and outline. So we in the guidance documents, there is a portion that then assists you with planning. It assists you with determining which knowledge skills or knowledge gaps that you have, and you can use that. You're more than welcome to check it on the website. You can use that to assist you with the planning. And the two-step cycle is limited to 3 CPD activities per year. So using the two-step cycle, you can only enter 3 of 6, and it is up to you if you want to use the two-step cycle. But the 4-step cycle, which does not have any limitations, is there. So you can enter 6 of your entries using the 4-step cycle, or you can enter 3 using the 4-step cycle and 3 using the 2-step cycle. It's all up to you. So I'm going to quickly log in, and then we can go through one CPD entry together.
Okay, if while Ms. Raisibe is logging in, all right, so just to reflect again on the steps of the CPD cycle, we have a reflection on practice. Reflection requires a pharmacist to identify their own learning needs through the reflection on their current practice and fill in the gaps. And then in terms of the next step is planning. All right, the pharmacist is supposed to provide a detailed plan with reasons for the selection of the method that they're going to use to acquire the new knowledge or skill under the planning step. And then the next step is implementation. The pharmacist would need to clearly describe what activities they have undertaken, where was it undertaken, when was it undertaken, and how it was performed. And the last step is evaluation, where the pharmacist would assess the impact of their learning on their practice. Thank you. I'll hand over back to Raisibe. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mohano. Okay, so this is what the CPD system looks like. We have here the 4 steps starts with the reflection, then it goes to planning, implementation, and evaluation. And your 2-step is right here. So we will start with the 4-step cycle and go through it and submit 1 entry. So when you click on the reflection, it takes you to this. These are the ones that I've already submitted. And then it says identify a new learning need. So that's where you start when you submit an entry. You will then in it select a domain. And we can select in here safe and rational use of medicines and medical devices. And then you can select here a domain, can be patient counseling. Yeah, let's select patient counseling. And seeing that we have just passed World AIDS Day last week, then our title can be how to use the HIV self-testing kit. So that can be our title for today. And then you select a learning trigger. What is it that prompted you in order to want to learn this? It could be appraisals, could be an audit, it could be that you had an incident, it could be that you had a chat with your colleagues and realized that you actually don't know anything about that particular topic. It could be that you were reading a journal and realized that you needed to learn more. So let's select one. And then this that you are learning, is it related to your current role? Is it related to a new role, or is it related to both? So you just choose the one that applies there. And then were you prompted by your employer, or were you prompted by your clients, your service users, or was it you speaking to your colleagues and your peers, or was it just you who decided to then learn? And then in here, you then describe the learning need that you have. Why do you feel that you have this particular gap, and what are you hoping to achieve in this particular learning? You do have a maximum of 1,000 characters there, and then you can use that. But for the purposes of this, we will just use test, and then you save. So as you save, it gives you an option to either continue to the next step, which is planning, or not, which if you choose no, it will then save that reflection step. And if you come back to it, it allows you to either edit your reflection or proceed to planning. So for the purposes of this, we will proceed to the planning step. And then on planning here, you have the mode of learning. This is wherein you then, in your planning, then you will decide if you're going to use a non-measurable learning mode. The non-measurable learning mode is wherein you're speaking to your colleagues, or you read a journal, or you read a book and you realize that you have actually a knowledge gap and you need to learn more, and you continue with the reading. Or it could be a measurable activity, which is then if you have enrolled for a short course that has a duration of 6 months or less. Or it could be structured, wherein then you have enrolled yourself for a course that is over 6 months in duration. It could be a diploma, it could be PCDT, it could be anything really that you enrolled yourself in and that you learn and that you can apply as a learning activity. So if you, under each and every one, they all have primary activities and they are related to the mode of learning. If your mode of learning is measurable, then also the primary activities here will be related to that, and then you choose that which applies to you. And then when did you start with your learning? So this is where you will then indicate when you started, and it will also give you an idea of how long it took you. So if it was a one-day thing, then you can choose the dates there. And then under here is where you are then going to briefly describe the reasoning behind your planning selections. Why did you choose this particular mode of learning? Why did you elect to self-study? Why did you elect to read a journal? Then you will write there and explain your reasoning behind that, and then you go to save, and then it allows you to go to the next step, which is implementation. And then it then populates the things that you have written there. As you can see, it has populated the learning title. It has populated that it is a non-measurable mode of learning. It has populated the primary activity as a self-study, and it populated the start date and the end date here. And then how long did it take you to learn what you have learned? So you will indicate here how long it took you, and the achievement date you can also amend according to when did you then feel that I have actually learned and I can be able to apply this. So you will select a date there. And then here you will then describe what is it that you have done. What were the actions that you took in order to learn what you needed to learn? So you also have 1,000 characters there. And then you will describe and then you save. And then as you save, it then takes you to the next step. You can still decide to not go to the next step and save it for later on when you get another chance to come and finish it off. So on the evaluation, this is where you are evaluating what you have learned and what is it that you have learned? How did you apply it? Did you achieve the goals that you set for yourself? Did you learn what you wanted to learn, or do you still feel that you need to learn more? So you will describe here. Did you meet your objectives in full, or did you partially meet the objectives, or were your objectives not met? Then you select which is applicable. Where did you apply what you have learned? Did you apply it in your workplace, or have you not yet applied it? Did you apply it outside your workplace? Then you also select that which is applicable. And here you will describe, providing examples, how you applied what you have learned. For example, after you have learned, did you perhaps teach a client? Did you perhaps speak to a colleague and then teach them what you have learned? Or what did you do with what you have learned? Did you, after that, maybe then write an SOP? What did you do? Then you will write there, and then so here are the options that you have. And please, I would like to caution you, we have had a few people that instead of submitting for compliance, they have saved. So if you save it, it is not submitted. We will not know on our side that you have submitted a CPD entry, and as a result, it will not count towards your compliance. It will still show under your CPD submissions that it is awaiting submission. Therefore, as a result, you need to come here and then go to it and submit it for compliance. We also do have an option to submit for peer review. So peer review is not compulsory. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. So when you submit something for peer review, it's not compulsory for you to do this. Sorry about this. It's not compulsory for you to submit something for peer review. You do submit out of your choice so that you can have somebody that you are bouncing your ideas with, somebody that then guides you, somebody that then can be able to correct you and guide you on what is it that you need to then do in order to improve. But when you submit for peer review, it becomes a parallel submission. So on the council administration side, it gets received and your peer receives it. So whether your peer gets the chance to review your submission or not, you do not get penalized because it would have been submitted for compliance as well. So if you want to then have a peer reviewer, you click here to add a peer, but you first discuss with your peers, because if they don't accept it on their side, they will not be able to see it, they will not be able to review it. And then you put in your PSP number here, and then they do get to receive an SMS to say Raisibe has selected you as your peer, as her peer reviewer. So please log in order to accept and be able to review. And once you have selected someone, you need to then come here and activate for that particular person to be able to review your CPD entry. And if you do not do that, they will not be able to view, even if they accept, they will not be able to view that CPD entry. So once they have then reviewed your entry and you are happy, you can then deactivate that person so that they don't have a view of your CPD entries anymore. So I'll just go back to my submissions so that we can be able to submit the CPD entry for compliance. So then you come here and then you select submit for compliance. If you didn't do the submit to peer review, then you can submit your entry for compliance here. But because this one was for the purposes of training, I will not submit it. I will then go to it and delete. Okay, so it has deleted that entry. Then we will do a two-step activity so that you can also see how that one is done. Or it says I've maxed my 3 CPD activities for the year. So I'll just delete one so that I can be able to take you through this. Okay, so this is what the two-step CPD activity looks like. So in here, you will put in your title, and then you select a domain. And then you select your mode of learning and your primary activity. And then you go to step number 2. And then you select the duration, and you then put in the achievement date, and you describe what is it that you have done. What are the actions that you have taken in order to fill in your knowledge gaps? And were your learning objectives met? Were they met fully? Were they met partially or not met? and where did you apply what you have learned? Did you apply it in the workplace? Did you apply it outside the workplace? What did you do? And then also here you describe providing examples, how you have applied what you learned, including if you got feedback from the people you were applying your knowledge to, you can use that to describe. And then also here you have the options to either save, submit for compliance, submit for peer review, or submit for self-review. So the self-review option is wherein you want to see yourself and review your own CPD entry using the review criteria that we have. So I'll just take you through that a little bit so that you can have an idea of what self-review is. So you go under self-review, and then that particular CPD entry that you have submitted for self-review will be available here. And also please note that if you submit it for self-review and you don't get a chance to come and self-review it, it's not a train smash, because it is a parallel submission. It also gets submitted for compliance. So you can come here and assess it. So this is the assessment criteria that we have. So you check the title that you put. So the assessment criteria, for example, it's saying here, there is a title which is descriptive and relevant to the behavioral statement. The title is relevant to what the pharmacist needs to learn and is not the same as the competency or the domain. Then, you assess yourself here and you can give yourself that the requirement was met. And then the learning title is linked to the competency and associated behavioral statement. You also give yourself an outcome there, and then you continue. And then in here is where you evaluate your planning step. So the pharmacist must describe the plan and provide a brief description of the reasoning behind the planned selection. And then you evaluate yourself there, and then you can also put in comments here. And then also here is where you then evaluate your implementation step, and you can put in comments. So it evaluates all the 4 steps that you have done, and then you can put in comments for yourself. So say, for example, you feel that you did not really meet the requirements and you still want to learn more, you can go learn more and come back and use that which you have learned as a CPD entry. So when you click on summary, it summarizes how you have evaluated yourself and gives you the comments that you wrote. And this allows you to then learn further. So I will go back to the presentation so that we can continue. This was so that you can be familiar with the CPD system. So with what we have been through by now, you know that a good CPD activity should have a learning title, and your learning title should be appropriate and relevant to the domain that you have chosen. It must not just be a copy and paste of the domain or a copy and paste of the competency standard. It should be something that you create and that is relevant to what you have learned. And the learning need, that's where you then describe what knowledge gaps do you as a pharmacist seek to fill. What is it that you feel that you lack and want to enhance? And the learning method or the learning activity, this is wherein we describe that there are measurable learning activities, there are the non-measurable ones, and there are the structured ones. And the learning outcomes, this is where you describe what you have learned and how did what you have learned improve your skills. We have already been through the learning activities. So the self-study, case study, or attending a conference, these are the non-measurable learning activities. And short courses, reviewing an article, or being invited as a guest speaker at a conference, that's the measurable learning activity. Or if you enroll yourself for a course that is less than 6 months in duration, you can use that as a learning activity as well. And the structured learning activities are those that are over 6 months in duration. It could be a diploma, could be postgraduate studies. You are more than welcome to use those as your learning activity and submit a CPD entry using that. And then a portfolio of evidence. What is evidence? So let's say we were learning how to use a self-test, an HIV self-test kit. And after you have learned that, you feel you need to educate your patients, educate the people that you are working with. And also, for example, you need to write an SOP so that the people you are working with can be able to follow that particular SOP. So you can use the reading materials that you used as your evidence. The SOP that you have created, you can also use that as your evidence. But please remember, do not upload your evidence on the CPD system. Your evidence will need to then be current, which means it has to be something that you have done in the 12 months of 2021. It should be valid and it should be relevant to the particular domain and competency standard that you have chosen. So as we have just said, your CPD activities needs to be relevant, needs to be current. They need to be that of 2021 for the year 2021. And please do not use the old ones, because the aim here is to be a lifelong learner and not use the things that you have learned a long time ago for the current year. I'll go back to the system again so that I can be able to explain the archives. Okay, so on the CPD system under the dashboard. So this is what your dashboard looks like. It shows you the CPD entries per domain. So it shows how many you have entered for a particular domain. And then there's where it shows you entry by status. So if an entry is saying awaiting submission, please note that it means it's not submitted and it will not count towards your compliance for that year. So please make sure that you go and check and submit all your CPDs that are awaiting submissions. And then we do have in here the archive button. So this is if you have archived a CPD entry and you want to come back to it at a later stage to see what is it that you have submitted. But what we did as the Office of the Registrar for 2021, in order to clear your system so that you can be able to submit your 2021 CPD entries for the people that were compliant with their 2020 CPD requirements, we have moved all your CPD entry to archives so that the system can then be cleared. I just want to show you here what it will then show under your annual declaration. So your CPD activities for the year will reflect under annual declaration for that particular year. As you can see, mine here are showing that I did 9 in 2020 and they were archived and they were counted towards my compliance. And this is what it shows for the year 2021. But please at home, do not archive your CPD entries if you want them to count for your 2021 compliance. Leave them there and let them count towards your compliance, because otherwise if you archive them, then they will not count. But then if you had archived your CPD activity in error, then you are able to come back here and restore that entry. And then it will then be able to be submitted then for compliance. I'll just quickly go back to the presentation. So the highlights are that Council does not work on a point system. So please note that we do not take points. We are not saying that don't register for courses or things like that, but please, after you have registered and you have learned, log in on the system and enter your own CPD activities and submit them for compliance. The CPD activities are not assessed for competence at the moment. They only get to be assessed for compliance for the pharmacist. Council is working on eventually assessing them for competence, but that's a pipeline thing that they are working on. And please, no third-party entries. Do not give your login details to someone and ask them to submit your CPD activities for you. It's something that you need to do yourself for yourself. And also, no non-practicing pharmacists are allowed to practice the scope of practice of a pharmacist. So please, if you have designated yourself as a non-practicing pharmacist or you have been designated as a non-practicing pharmacist by Council, do not practice your scope of practice until such time that you have applied and complied with CPD requirements in order for you to be able to practice. Council encourages all of you out there to be lifelong learners so that you can then uplift the dignity of the profession. Thank you so much. The presentation ends here. We will then open the floor for questions, suggestions, and discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Raisibe. If we can just get any questions can be typed in and sent, and we'll read them out and we'll respond to them. Just to emphasize that the deadline, or we encourage pharmacists to submit CPDs by the 31st of December, as we've already sent out communications to everyone to say we need the submissions to be done by the 31st of December this year. Thank you. We can move to the questions now. Right, you will take over, Ms. Rai, if you can handle the published questions.
I cannot see any questions under chat. Natalie, please assist if there are questions.
Okay, so let me just go through to the questions there. All right, under published questions, under live events, it says there, good morning. If you have registered for a master's degree, does that qualify as a CPD entry, or must you still capture 6 CPD entries? So it does qualify, but you still have to record it on the CPD system. So it might be that you drafted your research proposal and there's something that you learned in the drafting of that proposal and you'd like to record it with us on the CPD platform. You may do so. And out of that, the proposal, there could be 6 CPDs or 5 or 4 that could come out of the proposal, depending on what you learned in that particular entry. But you still need to record the 6 CPD entries on our platform. All right, the next question. I've submitted my declaration for 2021, but it keep on saying update declaration next to yes. Complete. Should I do anything else or leave it as such? All right, once you have submitted your declaration, you still have an opportunity to go and update it. So even if you see the update tab at the end after you have submitted, you don't have to do anything. Once you have submitted it and you have submitted it, because the system gives you an opportunity to go back there to update it, you'll still find that tab. So it's fine once you submit it, you don't need to do anything more. And then the next question is, do we have a minimum number of words, or it's just 1,000 characters? We have not prescribed any minimum number of words. It's up to the pharmacist how many words they want to use. We have just kept the number of words or characters to 1,000, so that we don't have, an essay in the submissions. However, we urge pharmacists to be as descriptive as possible and not just write, a five-word sentence and leave it there, because you need to demonstrate that you have learned something or you have engaged in the process of CPD in your submission of the comments there. Thank you. And then the next question, it says, hi, have submitted a number of CPD submissions, but all is always just stating submitted for compliance. What does that mean? All right, after that status means that you are done, you have submitted it for compliance. So the CPD entries are currently with cancer. So they will count towards your compliance to CPD requirements for 2021. So you are safe. Thank you. And then the next question, how long does one need to keep evidence? You are required to keep evidence or any electronic evidence for a period of 5 years, and after 5 years you may discard that evidence. So if you can just keep an electronic file on your system or your flash drive and put it somewhere in case council calls upon that evidence in future. So you keep it for 5 years. Thank you. And the next question is, on the dashboard, I have orange and says not available, 6 entries, not sure what this means, right? So when it says not available, it means you have submitted the CPD entry. But in terms of, because we do not assess a pharmacist CPD, we only look or check the pharmacist CPD for compliance. The result will always say not available because we don't publish the results. We only issue a compliance status letter at the end of the CPD cycle, which is the end of the 12-month cycle of the CPD system. So for interns, they will get a result under that particular status or tab, where it indicates whether they are successful in that entry or not. All right, the next one is, please, if you can advise here, many of us who had the 2021 compliance acknowledged, and the website has now revert to 2020. Okay, let me just read that question again. Please, if you can advise here, many of us who had the 2021 compliance acknowledged, and the website has now reverted to 2020. I'm not sure on that question. Raisibe, do you know anything about it?
No, I don't. I don't understand what the question means. I am not sure if it's perhaps somebody who did not comply with their 2020 requirements and are still required to submit those, and they don't understand why it's being submitted on the 2021 annual declaration. So perhaps we can just clarify that CPD entries do get allocated according to the date of submission. So even if you are required to submit your 2020 CPD entries, if you did not comply with the requirements in 2020, they will show under 2021 because that's according to the date in which you have submitted those. So it's okay if they show there. On our side, we have a way of then allocating your 2021 CPD entries for compliance and the 2020 CPD entries for compliance.
Thank you, Raisibe. If we can move on to the next question.
Okay, the next question says, when does the SAPC close in December in the event that we have any issues whilst entering our CPD? Mr. Magane, do you want to take the question?
Yes, there's a question prior to that.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. Is it the one that says, can the CPD system be modified to include activities done in manufacturing and distribution? Jay, if you can check the competency standards, there is where it then includes all the sectors of pharmacy. There's no sector of pharmacy that has been excluded. It's up to you how you structure your CPD activities, but you need to read and understand the competency standards. Then you will be able to find those that do apply to manufacturing and distribution.
Thank you, Raisibe. In terms of the next question, when does the SAPC close? In December, it normally closes between Christmas and New Year. And it says there, in the event we have any issues while entering CPD. So we recommend that you submit your CPDs earlier so that we can be able to assist you. Submit your CPDs before the 24th, if possible, of December, so that we still available to assist you if there are any challenges in that regard. Right, you may continue with the rest.
Thank you. I'll do so. Let's see. Please continue. Then I'll be able to know where we are.
Okay, the next one is say, good day, my 2020 CPDs are orange and says not available. Not sure what that means. Just ensure that the status is say submitted for compliance, then you are fine. As I already indicated, that in terms of the results or assessment results, we do not release assessment results for pharmacists. Right, CPD has displayed there the page. You will see there's also a status that says submitted for compliance. So that's all you need to check. So don't worry about the status not available. As I've already mentioned, that we don't assess the CPDs for pharmacists for competence. We only check them for compliance. So the status will always remain not available.
Thank you, Mr. Morano. And then I see the next one says, please confirm again, may the 6 CPD activities include 3 4-step and 3 2-step activities? Yes, you can do it that way. You can submit 3 of the 4-step cycle and 3 of the 2-step cycle. It is all up to you, or you can submit your CPD activities using only the 4-step cycle. What we are trying to stress is that the 2-step cycle has limitations, and it's limited to 3 CPD entries per year. And we have had questions from people who didn't comply with their 2020 CPD requirements in 2020 and complied in 2021 during the grace period. So if during the grace period you used your 3 CPD entries for the year, you will unfortunately have to use the 4-step only to comply with the 2021 requirements. There we will not be able to then give you access to submit 3 more of the 2-step. And
Right, you skipped 2 questions above that question.
Sorry. We have done this one. If you have not completed CPD requirements for 2020, what is the process? Or do you have to first complete 2020 before doing 2021? For the people who did not comply with their 2020 CPD requirements, you will then have to now submit 6 CPD entries for 2020 if you are not yet designated as non-practicing. But if you have already been designated as non-practicing, you will do that and then apply for your designation to be changed, and then you can then continue and comply with the 2021 CPD requirements. But the 2020 CPD requirements, as I have said, they will then be displayed under the 2021 as CPDs get allocated according to the date of submission. The question that comes after that is asking, do we need to upload certificates of achievement of CPD activities? The answer is no. Please do not upload your evidence. Please maintain an electronic portfolio of evidence in case council requests you to do so. Do we need to upload certificate received of achievements for completed CPD activities? The answer is please do not upload. Okay, I have received an email that indicates I have been removed from the register because I am not compliant. Do we not have until 31st December before we are removed? Please note that you are not removed from the register. you are still registered as a pharmacist, but you are a non-practicing pharmacist if you did not comply with your 2020 CPD requirements. And anonymous, please send us an email. We will publish our email address in here so that we can approach this query on one-on-one, because we did not change anybody's designation yet for non-compliance with the 2021 CPD requirements, as you have until the 31st of December to do so. It's only those who did not comply with the 2020 CPD requirements. So I am not sure what happened here. So please send us an email to that email address there, then we can be able to assist you. Can you explain the e-portfolio further? Can you explain the electronic portfolio? Mr. Magana, I think you have already explained that, where you said they can then store their evidence on a PC or on a hard drive, but they can just make sure that it's available if it gets requested by council. Good morning. After restoring from archive, the system takes back to planning for updating. Will this count for the new year, even though it was from the previous year? As I have requested, please do not restore from archives the CPD activities that we have archived. We archived those for the sole purposes of clearing your system so that you can be able to submit your 2021 CPD entries. Unless if you yourself archived something erroneously, then you can restore it. And when you restore, yes, it does take you through all the steps so that you can check if what you have done is what you wanted to submit, and then you resubmit, and it will allocate a new submission date. This is why you are not encouraged to restore your 2020 CPD entries, as they then get removed from your 2020 submission. Is the audit simply for compliance checks? Yes, it is for compliance. We are not yet assessing CPD activities for pharmacists for competence. I submitted 6 CPDs for 2020 and received the letter confirming this. However, my profile now indicates 0 submissions for 2020 and 12 submissions for 2021. Please advise. This could be because you have complied with your CPD requirements during the grace period of 2021. That's why it will be like that. It can be either that, or you have restored from archives your CPD entries, but leave it as it is. Leave it as 12 submission for 2021. Then that way you have complied with your requirements for 2020 and also with the 2021 requirements. Should CPD activity also be logged for pharmacist assistants or only for pharmacists? Council is working on the competency standards for pharmacist assistants. They were previously published for comment, and we are working on them to be published for implementation. And as soon as that happens, then we will publish a board notice that will then oblige the pharmacist assistants to comply with CPD requirements. But at the moment, it's not mandatory for the pharmacist assistants to comply with CPD. If practicing in another country, should we submit CPDs? If you are practicing in another country and are still registered as a pharmacist in South Africa and would like to remain registered, it's up to you if you then want to remain also as a practicing pharmacist, or if you want to change your designation to non-practicing until such time that you are back in the country. So if you complete your annual declaration and designate yourself as non-practicing, you will then not be obliged to comply with the requirements. And when you return, you can then apply to change your designation to practicing. But if you designate yourself as practicing, it will mean you then need to comply with the CPD requirements. I'm doing more than one discipline, so which one should I do compliance for? For example, manufacturing, retail, research, and so forth. The CPD compliance does not log you according to your sector of practice. So once you have completed your annual declaration, we also give you there where you have your primary role and the secondary role. You are able to choose more than one. And also when you submit your entries, you can submit your entries using a variety of the CPD activities that you feel you are competent in. So you are not restricted to just one sector of pharmacy. I submitted CPDs on 23 of the 4th month, 2021, which was meant for 2020 as the cutoff was 30 April. It shows on my profile, however, I was told that I did not submit for 2020. I'm confused. 4 entries shows as submitted for compliance. If it's 4 entries, then you did not comply because you need to submit 6 CPD entries for compliance each year. So if you had only submitted 4, then it means that you did not comply. And if we had sent you a letter to say that we have designated you as non-practicing, it means then you need to submit the 2 CPD entries that are missing for 2020 and apply for your designation to be changed back to practicing should you wish to do so. Or also if you feel that you were compliant and we erroneously said that you are non-compliant, please send us an email to that email address that I put there and put your PIN number, then we will be able to assist you. If we have queries regarding CPD entries, is there a contact email address we can use? Yes, there is a contact email address. We have been putting it in all the chats. It's there again. I put it on as a reply to that question. How do I do the 4-step cycle, please? I think we dealt with this. I hope, Nazia, you now understand. Can you explain the Eportfolio further? When entries by outcome say, oh, this is a different question. I think we did deal with the Eportfolio, so we will skip that question. When entries by outcome says not available, what do you do? I think Mkwadi has outlined this in detail. So it's because we did not assess you for competence. But if your CPD entries are saying submitted for compliance, then you are safe. If you are studying abroad and click non-practicing, does that mean you cannot change your status back? If so, what do I do? If you have designated yourself as non-practicing and want to then change it to practicing, you will need to apply. The application form is available on the website. You can then apply to change your designation status. What are the implications when changing from non-practicing to practicing? Would there be additional CPD to complete, an exam to write, etc.? No, there will be no exam. But if you did not comply with the 2020 CPD requirements, before we can change your we can change your designation from non-practicing to practicing, you will need to then submit the CPD entries for 2020 so that we can be able to change you. And this is different for people who voluntarily designated themselves as non-practicing. So if you volunteered and designated yourself as non-practicing, when you then come back and want to change your designation, you will then not be obliged to comply with the CPD requirements for the previous years. You will only just need to send in the application form and comply with the CPD requirements for the current year. I think this brings us to the end of the questions. Are there any further questions?
Right, thank you. Thank you. I think the other questions from the other platforms were posted here, so I think we went through all the questions. I'd just like to take this time to thank the pharmacist for joining us in this session. We know that you are busy, and we really appreciate your efforts in building, South Africa, and in delivering quality pharmaceutical services to all. And without any waste of time, if there aren't any other comments or questions, I would like then to close the meeting here and wish all the pharmacists all the best. And we hope that you would submit your CPDs as soon as possible and comply to requirements in 2021. Thank you. Enjoy your day further. Goodbye.